Hey guys, welcome back to There is Only Free Will. If you remember the origin story of creation, as I laid it out in the previous few lessons, you will remember that in the timeless beginning, before anything began whatsoever, and simultaneous to now, there is only infinite unity, the infinite one, beyond experiencing, the indescribable. Now we'll get further into this experientially, or in a sense you could say non-experientially, in the infinity teaching or the infinity course. However, for the purpose of this empowerment course or self-actualization, all you need to know is you just need to have this as a contextual background understanding of where things come from, what is the original unity, what's the original one. So if you remember that originally speaking there is only infinity, and then infinity desired somehow out of all of its infinite possibilities, being completely undefined yet having no awareness of itself, it wanted to generate awareness of itself. It wanted to generate experience and expression of itself. And so it generated free agency, the not energy, but the freedom of free agency itself. This is synonymous with awareness, or you. So fundamentally speaking, the awareness that's hearing my voice right now, if you tie it all the way back to its most original state, it actually is complete pure free will. And even now in the form of it listening to me in your very condensed physical experience, it still is free will. So what you fundamentally are is actually free agency. It is free will. It is the infinite one's ultimate free agent. That is what you are. That's what awareness is. Now, why is it important to, at least to some extent, be open to or accept the understanding or the principle or the universal law of free will? It is because this is the only way for you to lead yourself fully into empowerment, fully from the victim state into the empowered state, from the sheep-like state into the creator-like state. It is the only way to completely experientially and energetically bridge the gap between you and the creator itself, and to once again remember what you truly are, and to start to become the embodiment of who and what you truly are. You can't, in my understanding and my experience with many people of all kinds of spiritual paths, including spiritual paths that absolutely believe that there is no free will whatsoever. In my experience with all of those people, working with all these people and myself, is that there is no sound way, there is no solid, reliable way to completely empower yourself without understanding this principle of free agency, without accepting that that is a fact. You can gain a lot of clarity, you can gain a lot of self-realization, meaning you can start to realize a lot about the changelessness of awareness and the state of oneness, in a sense. But if you still believe in the idea that you do not have, or you are not, free will or free agency or free awareness, then there will always remain this energetic distancing between yourself and what occurs, between yourself and the creator, between yourself and consciousness, between yourself and God, between yourself and creation itself, or life itself. I've never met anyone that believed there was no free will and that did not have any energetic distortions that prevented them from fully accessing the truth and the freedom of who they really are. So it is relatively important that you are at least open to exploring and to becoming a, in a sense, believer, or rather an experiencer of the fact that you are free will itself. So having shared that, let's get into some of the details. There's many different levels of free will. So, and here's where the confusion comes in with the no free will versus free will conversation. And I'll just briefly get into this because there's such a prominent discussion in these philosophical, spiritual realms. So let's just get this out of the way real quick so that we can get to what really matters in your everyday life. So, free will or no free will? Absolutely speaking, free will, totally free will. This is my experience, this is my expression, but I'll tell you why. I was one of those believers in no free will for a little while. I was one of those experiencers of no free will for a little while. I experienced myself as pure awareness, and everything that occurred was simply happening as an appearance, as an effortless appearance inside of my awareness. That was my self-realized, enlightened experience for quite a while. So I experienced myself as not being the doer, as not being the chooser, as not being free will. It all was experienced as everything just happens to me or through me, effortlessly and with no doership, with no chooser. This seemed at the time very convincing. It seemed very convincing because I keep reasserting the same point of view, the same definition, unknowing to myself. I was actually generating, out of my own free will, generating the state of being that experiences no free will. Such paradox, such power there is in free will, to generate things that are not actually true, but then make them experientially real. So I started to notice that because I kept repeating the same thing that I heard from many other spiritual teachers and self-realized gurus, that there is no free will, that there is no doership, that there is no chooser, and that things just appear and disappear all by themselves without me being a part of that process whatsoever, just being the observer of it. Just repeating that point of view, because it is a point of view, we have to admit at least that. It is a way of seeing life. There's many people that don't see that way and that also have a valid experience. So at least if we do believe that there is no free will, we have to admit first of all that that is a perception, that that is a perspective, that that is a point of view of existence. It is a lens, a filter through which we see. It's a definition that we have. It's a statement, there is no free will. The statement is followed by a way of seeing life and experiencing and tasting life. So if you keep repeating to yourself, as I did, that there is no doer, there is no free will, then yes, you can gain the clarity and the liberation from feeling caught up inside of the separate sense of being a doer, which is what many people that are not really awakeness or spirituality oriented are usually caught up in, is the sense of stressful doership. And hence spirituality or self-realization teaches that there is no doership, so that people can eliminate that sense of stress and start to actually relax out of the condensed, contracted sense of self. In this way, the perspective, there is no doer, there is no free will, is helpful for a little while. It is helpful because it relaxes the tension, the identification with the individuated doer. And it allows you to simply rest as awareness very effortlessly and start to see through your defined filters, but start to experience life as simply a show, a fireworks show of appearances coming and going, coming and going. And if you emphasize the fact that they're simply coming and going, then you can get the experience that you're not really doing any of it. It's just sort of happening outside of your control. And this is a very liberating realization for many people because it lets them off the hook. It allows them to simply rest and not have to worry about what happens because they can't change it anyway. However, there is a limitation inherent in this perspective, and that is that it is a perspective and not a universal law or truth. It's not actually the way reality works. So therein lies its limitation. So out of free will, we can choose whatever perspective we wish to continuously repeat. The more often we repeat a certain perspective, the more real it will become to us, the more vivid and real-like it will become for us, and more experiential it will become for us. And so if we keep repeating the statement, I'm not the doer, I'm not the chooser, things are just happening outside of my control, I can't do anything about it anyway, it just happens anyway, life just happens, then we can start to experience life in that way and experience both the benefits and the limitations inherent or innate to that perspective. Now, why does that perspective feel good? If you remember the emotional system that you know, when your perspective is either in or out of alignment with the Creator, with creation, with the fundamental laws of existence. If your perspective is close enough that we could call it in alignment with one of those truths, it starts to feel good. If your perspective is out of alignment and does not compute with these laws, it starts to feel bad. So why, for many people, does it feel good to believe that things just happen and they are not the doer? It's not because the statement, I am not the doer, is true. It's because one of the other assumptions that comes with that is true, which is, I can relax, everything is fine the way it is. Everything happens the way it happens, and that is all right. So it is in their act of relaxing out of the stressful sense of I need to make things work in a certain way, that does not compute with creation. So when they relax out of that, they suddenly feel like they're computing more and more with existence. So it actually starts to feel peaceful and in alignment to believe you're not the doer, that there is no free will. Because you're not being preoccupied, you're not being overly stressfully oriented upon trying to make things work a certain way, which goes against the energetic flow of creation itself. And in that sense, believing you're a doer in a stressful sense is out of alignment. But believing you're not a doer, even though it feels better for most people, it still does not feel ultimately perfect. That is because it still is not completely true. It's not in alignment with one of the most fundamental principles of all of creation itself, and that is that of free agency. So, what we want is the relaxation that comes with believing that life just happens and it's all good. But we want to combine that with the true understanding of the fact that we actually choose our state of being and our perspectives, and that through choosing our perspectives of life and our state of being, we actually do impact the way things flow through us, the way things just seem to happen. Now, we do not use our physical body to make things happen. Yes, we do that to an extent, but what I'm saying is that appearances just appear. Yes, they seem to just come and go. Yes, they seem to take care of themselves. In other words, we do not create our reality using our physical body. In fact, our physical body is part of the creation that we have created, part of the environment that we have created. It's inseparable from the rest of our environment that we have created this moment to be, out of choosing our state of being previously. So you see, there is always free will. You can choose to believe in a certain belief, and then that can start to seem very, very real the more you repeat it, because it becomes experiential. But just because something becomes experiential doesn't make the underlying belief or perspective absolutely true or absolutely in alignment. So, free will is honored throughout all layers or levels of consciousness. In other words, consciousness itself is the free agent, awareness itself is free will. And within its own ultimate free agency, within its own ultimate state of consciousness or awareness, it generates many, many different levels of consciousness, infinite levels, in fact, each with its own purpose, each with its own sense of self and sense of individuation of the all that is consciousness. So each level has its own way of expressing free will, has its own degree of free will, shall we say. So, for example, let's just say that there are two types of consciousnesses within ourselves. There's many, many more, but let's just keep it simple for this analogy and say that there is the lower self, or the physical mind, and there is the higher self, or the non-physical mind. These, we could say, are two different levels of consciousness that directly apply to our everyday experience. Right now, you're experiencing from both levels. You may not experience fully what it's like to experience from the higher self level, but that's all right. You nevertheless use that level to co-create your everyday life experiences. So there is free will on both levels, but there is a different application of this free will. Hence, the confusion can come in because it may seem like we don't have free will. I cannot just move a mountain, or so we believe. Therefore, free will must be an illusion. I cannot create my reality in that way. But we have to understand that from this level of consciousness, the physical mind-based, here and now based consciousness, we can only do so much in terms of free will. Our free will applies to a different area of relevance, shall I say. So, for example, your lower self or your physical mind's based sense of self, probably that which is feeling like it is right now looking at a computer screen or listening to the audio. That sense of you being right here, being a physical being, or at least a physically focused being, has the free will of choosing how it will respond to life, what perspective it will believe in, and what perspective it will not believe in. That is entirely 100% up to you. You can either believe in no free will, you can believe in free will, you can believe in all kinds of things. And you will make these things experiential for yourself the more you actually choose to believe in that perspective. So you have complete control whether you remember this or not. But that's why this course is here, to help you remember and master this, to master your state of being, to choose consciously. But you have complete conscious control, in fact, over your state of being, over what perspective you wish to adopt in this moment about this moment. How do you wish to respond to this moment using your vibrational attitude, your state of being, your way of seeing yourself in life? That is entirely up to you. Now, what does the creating of your painting, of the life that you perceive, of the environment that you perceive, that is not done from the physical mind-based point of view, because that's not relevant for the physical mind-based point of view to have that type of control. So that is, in a sense, delegated to your higher self-consciousness or higher mind consciousness. The higher mind or the non-physical mind's consciousness is what generates experiences. It is what generates the way the wall looks that is in front of you or behind your computer screen, or the street that you're walking on right now, or the people that you meet. They are all created out of your non-physical mind's energy. So from a physical mind's point of view, you can only give suggestions, you can only give hints to your reality. You can only be of a certain vibratory state of being so that you will be most likely to attract certain physical manifestations that then correspond to or reflect that state of being, but you do not seemingly have free will over your environment. Yet you do, but you do from another level of consciousness. From that higher non-physical mind's point of view consciousness, which is also you. It's also a part of your I am consciousness. As you'll experience more and more as you proceed through this course and watch my videos, this will become more and more your conscious experiential experience. So you create from different levels, different types of things, depending on what is relevant for that level to have free will over. Nevertheless, there is no absence of free will at any given moment in any creation of your life ever whatsoever. It is all orchestrated by free will. It is all with your overall beings or overall consciousness's consent.